Hi, everybody. Welcome to My Inner Lighthouse. I am thrilled to have you today here with us. I'm here with Suzanne Reagan-Lentz, and I'd love to get started. It's a special day with a focus on narrative. So what I'd like to do first is to ground us in the moment. And what I'd like you to do, if you don't have already next to you, I'd love for you to just get some water. It's always great to have some water nearby. And I am going to light a candle. This beautiful little votive in front of me. I'm going to ring a Tibetan chime. And I'd like you to close your eyes and imagine that at the bottom of your feet, some of your spiritual roots are growing out of your feet into the foundation of your home, into the soil below, branching out. And imagine that 2 tap roots from your legs are going down into the earth, deeper and deeper. Take a couple deep cleansing breaths. A cleansing breath is breathing in through your nose, holding a beat, and blowing out through your mouth. Good. Keep those eyes closed. I'm going to read something to you today. We gather today to remember the good, the true, and the beautiful, to find the seeds of hope that are planted deep within our soul, to hold the red thread of grace that weaves together our world. We come to bear witness to stories that will kindle our courage, open our eyes that we might see the realm spread before us, open our ears that we might hear the song of the ages, open our hearts that we might receive the unquenchable light, that walking in the wood steps of Our Lady Mary Magdalene, we too might bless the world with healing balm. And I'd like you to tune into your heart space right in the center of your chest. I'm going to do it at the same time. And we're going to recite the mantra. I'm going to say it aloud. You say it to yourself. My heart holds the keys to my desires, to my truth, and my connection. And when you feel ready, wiggle your toes. I always kind of think about figure eights now with my neck, whatever allows you to be present in the moment, and open your eyes when you're ready. And I'm happy to report that Mary Magdalene is our invited channel guest today. So today's theme is narrative. Narrative is in the center of the spiritual mapping compass, and I have it on my website depicted, a little ancient compass. On the source question for that is, who am I? Who am I? It could be as simple as looking at who we are, the roles in our life, or as profound as why am I here in this earth plane, in this incarnation? So that's where we start. And I'm going to share something special. And Suze, why don't you chime in here and let's talk about why we're here today.
Sure. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
And you were recently on the Isle of Iona in Scotland, and you've just gotten back.
Yep.
But that's not what we're
No, it's a little confusing. So I was not able to connect long on social media in Iona, and I was really kind of upset. But that's kind of par for the course for me. So I decided to let it go. And I went on that trip with my daughter Hannah, which was really beautiful. Iona is this tiny island in the Inner Hebrides in Scotland. So more to come on that. When I came home, what the guides told me was that I wasn't really meant to share that right now, because how could I talk about my second pilgrimage with travel before talking about my first one, which made complete sense. So here we are.
And so, what about your first pilgrimage would you like
Okay.
to talk about?
Yeah, I want to talk about it. So as you can see, I'm a little hesitant. So this was the big reveal that we alluded to in the newsletter. Hopefully by now you've all read it. If you haven't, please sign up on our website. But I wanted to share that in a previous incarnation, I was Mary Magdalene. And it's a little scary for me to talk about here and share with the public. This is something Suze and Jackie you've known about for a little bit. And what I want to do is talk about that. I'm going to start with the big trip back in April of 2017 to Santa Barbara, California. I'm looking at my notes and the timeline because I get a little confused with time. Mike and I, my husband Mike and I took a trip to Santa Barbara, and it was this big blowout trip for a long weekend at the Easter weekend. And we flew out on a Thursday out of Seattle. And the first time I knew something strange was going on was we were waiting to board a plane. And I was talking to Jesus, as I do in my mind. And I was basically praying for protection. I don't really like going out of town on holidays. So I was praying for protection, get in line. I'm behind Mike, got all my luggage, feeling good. And Jesus says to me, I just have one favor to ask of you this weekend. And I said, what? Anything? And he said, remember me. And when he said, remember me, which is a really critical quote about the Last Supper, I completely buckled. I fell, my body completely crumbled. I knew it wasn't MS related. It was completely different body sensation. And Mike turned around quickly, and all these people around me came to me to assist me. And we didn't have time to really talk about it, but Mike assumed, as he would, that it was MS related. And I said I was fine, and I was mystified, and I boarded the plane, and that was kind of the end of that. We got to this beautiful place in Santa Barbara. We had our own cabana. We had a big refund. It's kind of a long story I won't get into here, but we had a spectacular visit and did all the things tourists did. But the main thing I wanted to do was to see the mission of Santa Barbara. I like going to missions, and basically just kind of enjoy the sun and the fun. On Easter morning, I woke up abruptly from this very vivid dream. And I remember shooting up in bed, and Mike said, what's the matter? And I said, I just had this crazy dream, and I'm wearing these robes, and I'm kind of coming out of these like shrub woods, and I'm running toward Jesus's tomb, because I noticed that this big rock that was in front of the tomb was pushed away, and I'm really concerned. And I'm kind of holding up my garments so I wouldn't trip. And I get to the tomb, and no one's in there. And as I'm saying this, I'm kind of, frazzled and looking around, reliving in my head. And Mike laughs kind of and says to me, you were Mary Magdalene. And I just looked at him. I'm like, no, I wasn't. And he said, yeah, Mary Magdalene was the first to come to the tomb. I'm like, no. And I had to go to the bathroom. So I go into the bathroom, and I'm just basically overwhelmed. And so I take a shower, and I just get into my Easter head. And I said, I just want to go to church. So just take me to an Episcopal church downtown. So he drops me off at church. There's a guest pastor, a woman, who decided that the whole sermon was going to be about the history of Mary Magdalene. And I'm in the back of the church. I'm like, oh, come on. So she starts relating where the origin story of Mary Magdalene being called a prostitute came from. And she was talking about Pope Gregory the Great in 591 AD. He did a series of sermons about the Magdalene. And, I don't believe he had a lot of ill will intentions, but he got the Marys conflated, as we all do in the Bible. And he basically came out and said his belief and interpretation that Mary Magdalene was a prostitute. So I'm listening to this and I kind of start looking around like, is everybody as shocked as me? And I had never learned this in my studies, in my master's. I'm shocked. She has my complete attention. I'm enthralled. Beautiful service. After the service, I begin to walk up, and of course, I'm in the back of the church. This woman was mauled. This pastor was mauled by all these women like me who wanted to know more. And I thought, okay, I'll just let her be. And I walk out, and Mike says what he always says, which was, "How was service?" And I say, "It was stunning." And I kind of explained as quickly as I could what I learned. He said, "Well, where do you want to go now?" I said, "Well, I doubt it's open, but I want to go to the mission." We go to the mission, it's open. And I'm full of all these, what I would say, competing feelings. And I go through the mission, and there's this beautiful statue of Mary Magdalene and Jesus, big statues, and there's seats nearby there. And I just stare at the statues, and I take a picture, and I pray. And I remember praying for clarity, and I was frightened. And I went to the gift shop, and they had a Mary of the Miraculous Medal there, and I bought it. And the woman was nice enough to change the medal so it'd always be lying on my heart, and I still wear it often. And that was the beginning. So I'll stop there for a moment and take a deep breath. Not breathing a whole lot right now.
Mhm. And what happened after that weekend, Sally?
So after that weekend, I came home, and I have to admit, I went into a little bit of denial. It was too much for me. I wasn't disagreeing with what had happened, but I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know how to talk about it. I didn't want it to keep causing me to disconnect from what was going on in my work. So I believe I shared it with you. We talked about it a little bit. We talked about story, but I still wasn't ready to face anything. So I kind of let it settle and retreat a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really human response to a situation like that, to learning something that big.
Yeah. And that's so soothing just to hear that, because in a way it was a little traumatic, I'd have to say. Um, and it was big for Mike, right? It's big for Mike to tell me, "Hey, you were Mary Magdalene." Like, Mike and I don't talk about this world at all. So for him to kind of lay it down in my lap was really big and different, and kind of evolutionary in our relationship. So after that point, that's kind of lying in my conscious, and I talked to Mary about it. And whenever I walk my labyrinth outside, I talk to Mary quite a bit. And then I was going to the church in town, the Episcopal church, and I noticed that they had a trip to go see the Magdalene sites in France. And there was a secretary there, and I said, "Do I have to be a member of the church to go?" And she said, "No, you can just sign up." And I didn't think twice. I signed up for it because honestly, in my head, I was thinking, how cool are pastors that will take us to La Baume, France, to learn more about Mary Magdalene? I felt instantly a greater connection with this church on Orcas Island. So fast forward to preparing for that trip. I'm reading all about pilgrimage. I'm learning about Mary Magdalene. I'm concerned because the trip up to La Baume, which is the town, but it's also the grotto where the story is Mary Magdalene spent 30 years of her life in isolation, happily in isolation in this cave. And there's all sorts of signage when you're there. I was concerned because I knew the chances of me being able to walk uphill for an hour and a half was slim to none. So Mary finally said, don't worry, you're going to sit at the base of it. I'm going to channel you directly. It will be very clear. It's a holy place. Just let your friends go up and you and I are going to have this great conversation, which is exactly what happened. So I go there. This was this trip, which you can read about on my website. I did a pilgrimage there. This was end of October, beginning of November 2018. I directly channel Mary for about an hour. I rarely raised my pen. She was very contrite, beautiful, direct. So I just never lifted my pen until I noticed people had come back from the pilgrimage, and my great friend Karen walked in, who was now on the other side, but Karen walked in and her face was glowing. So I stopped writing, ended up coming home from the trip, and I lost my journal. I lost my journal with all the sacred writings. And Suze, what did you tell me after that?
I told you to not worry that it was going to come back.
Yes. Did I believe you?
No, you did
No.
not. Not at all.
Not at all. I was so upset. What else happened after I got back?
You fell down the stairs.
I fell down the stairs. I think I was gone. I was back for all of maybe 3 days or something ridiculous, like not long.
It was during a work weekend.
Yeah.
And luckily I was there.
And luckily, so Suzanne's there. I just got back. Obviously, I'm thrilled with all this beautiful news of what I want to share. I'm getting all these wonderful insights. I had rented a place because my house was being renovated. And as I'm running down the stairs saying, Suze, I got this.
After meditation.
After meditation, being grounded, I come down the final flight of stairs. Suze is turning around and I skipped the last 2 steps to come down to the landing, and I massively clobbered and twisted my ankle. And I don't really remember how painful it was. I just know it was bad.
Yeah.
And of course, we did what you do in those situations. Suze was my guiding angel. We had to go off island. I did not break it, but I think the sprain was worse, honestly. Yeah. It was bad.
I think it took longer.
Yeah. So I get into meditation and I think it was on the ferry, and Jesus is like, yeah, sorry about that. You came home after this beautiful pilgrimage and you didn't learn the lesson that pilgrimage is about the path. It's not necessarily about the destination. So that was the second gift of that, was, the first being the beautiful words that I transcribed and lost. And then Jesus saying, no, we had to slow you down, slow down. And, the importance of taking your steps mindfully, calmly in life. So fast forward to months later, I get a call on Ash Wednesday in 2018. Oh, I think we have this notebook of yours. And I was like, holy cow. I go into town, find the original notebook, thrilled, go to my text Suzanne, oh my God, I found the notebook. You were right. You're amazing. And then I go to church, tell my pastor that I'd found it. And he said, oh my God, on Ash Wednesday, no less. And then receive the message that the original words that I wrote down were not for public consumption, that they would let me know when I would base a new pilgrimage very much on the original writings, but on something that would be more relatable. So about a year later, I go to Laguna, where my husband was living at the time, and I write The Way of the Rose, which is a free ebook online. And the third gift from that was the overwhelming message from Mary Magdalene, how important it is to be soft and strong. Not just strong, being soft and strong. So please, if you have not read it, it's a really beautiful and funny story about an afternoon with Mary Magdalene. And then I knew the time would come when I'd have to share it, and today's the day.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and I think you wanted me to interview Mary Magdalene on your behalf.
Yes, ma'am. Me and Mary. Yeah. Woo. So here we are.
Yeah.
So
So
let's start. Let's start with me.
you wanted to go through, Sally, you wanted to go through some questions with Mary Magdalene from your client intake form.
Yes.
And it's, it's her talking about, us here in our life now.
Right. So while you're talking and previewing, I'm like getting my feet kind of relaxing here. Great. Oh, she's saying hello. Hello. She wants me to hold up the light. And she's saying, I'm so glad your mantra is about desires, because we're going to talk about desires. She's saying it's so closely connected to the path. What's your first question, Suzanne?
What is your one thing? If you could change one thing in your eternal life right now, what would it be?
Okay, so I think it's important that I share what she's doing. So she was in her grotto, the cave, and she kind of had held up her little light, and she listened to the question. She decided to go outside of the cave, and she's sitting looking over the trees. There's these beautiful trees that are at the base of below the grotto. And she's going like this. She's saying, such a good question. Wonderful. Okay, so what she's sharing with me is, she said there's a tendency in your world to think of things coming from the outside, coming into your head, and resting down in the heart. And she said, there's better ways of attuning to your desires and the wisdom. And it's first going into the heart and seeing what resonates, and then allowing that to emanate. Much like in the writing of The Way of the Rose, she said, the rose doesn't discern who it shares its essence with. So if you begin at the heart, the head will follow. So I guess my one thing would be for people to stop and first connect with what's important with their heart to align with the inner before looking at the outer. Does that make sense?
It does.
I think it makes a ton of sense, don't you guys? Yeah.
I do. Yeah.
Go, Mary. Okay, let's keep going. Loving it.
The next question is, what gives you joy?
Oh, she's saying goodness. She's like, oh, so many things. So she is standing up and she's going like this. So she says the nature around me. When you connect with the heart, your heart opens and it sheds a lot of the now she's showing me like an onion, like the onion peels coming out. She kind of sheds all those peels and allows the light come in. And she's saying just the nature that's around you. She said, even if you're not in a place that's wooded or on a beach, she said, take in the nature that's around you. It might be a child laughing, it might be some music playing, it might be She's showing someone sitting at a cafe. It might be just seeing people walking by. Whatever is around you is nature to be enjoyed. She said, what gave me a lot of joy in my lifetime, now she's going back. Oh, she's actually closing her eyes. So, oh, interesting. So she said she loved to go to bazaars. She says the sound of the music, people exchanging goods, hearing, she said, hearing the kids would run through all the lines. She said that was something that gave me joy. Sitting silent by the sea. She liked to watch the sea. That was a favorite place for her to connect to her heart. She said she liked like the grass. She would look at the grass and she would feel the leaves, and allowed her to consider what needed to be, and like the leaves would fall apart, like what needed to be shed in her life. So she found joy in a lot of ritual. And she says, this is going to sound a little silly, but she said, I got a lot of joy out of the tears that were shed. But that's a little difficult to explain. I'll stop there, she says.
Yeah,
Thank
it
you
sounds
for
like
asking that question. Yeah.
yeah, it sounds like she received a lot of wisdom from being present in nature,
Yes.
or just being present, really. Just
She says that's an excellent point. So she's saying not only would she be present in nature, but she said being present to the nature of things. One of her favorite times of watching Jesus, the rabbi, speak was she was amazed at how much the children would understand. And they may not have understood the message, but they understood that what was happening in the moment was important, because they'd all gather and they'd sit at the feet of the rabbi, and they knew that what was happening was important. And while they may not understand it, that they could just be present to it. So I always felt like the nature of the children, the nature of the message, the nature of the story, and the nature of how people could be in community was very important. Also, she said Mother Mary was a weaver. She always found a lot of inspiration in her weaving and the knots of her weaving. So there's always something in the nature of life that we can learn from.
wonderful.
She wants to talk about tears. So let's talk about tears. So she's talking about me. So I am someone who cries. I'm a crier. My pastor says I have the gift of tears, that I feel vulnerable enough to be able to share my tears with others. And she says, befriend your tears. Make friends with your tears, because they'll make the path softer. And I believe that's actually in The Way of the Rose. So she wants people to not hold back their tears. It allows other people to feel that they can feel vulnerable too, that their strength and their softness can make the strength. There's a relation between softness and strength. And she's saying you have another question for me?
I do. The last question is, what makes you afraid?
Mm. There are a few things just off the top of my heart. I would say misunderstanding, assumptions. When people compare themselves or compare or judge too quickly. But mostly it's people feeling hopeless and the feelings that allow their heart to close and harden. So when they can't be present and let the light in, that they don't feel, see, experience, or witness the goodness. One of the things that breaks my heart a little is when people or situations are overlooked or ignored. I talked to Sally a lot about little black boxes. That's the name we call the phones. And seeing people more attached to a phone for a means of communication than just simply being present. That makes me afraid because it can cause a lot of misunderstanding. Matter of fact, I think we wrote something about that, about an orange rose. I see the picture about the social distancing, how I don't agree with the way social distancing is viewed. And instead, I see our heart, the sharing of our heart being a cloud of compassion. And there's so many ways to share the gifts of who we are. So I'd say what I'm most fearful about is people not being present to the good, the true, and the beautiful.
Do you have a message for folks?
Oh, this is wonderful. Okay. She's going, yes, yes. Okay. So I want to share what I'm seeing. So what I'm seeing is her standing up at the end of this like ledge that overlooks the beautiful nature down there. And she's turning around and all these, oh, this is great. All these masters and sages and consorts are walking out of La Baume, out of the actual grotto, and the grotto is becoming bigger. And it's as if the grotto has been opened up on the other end to the spirit world, and they're all kind of chattering and talking, and they're smiling, and they're saying, okay, so Mary Magdalene is speaking on behalf of all the guides and all the spirits in the spiritual realm. And she says, I'm so excited to share something with you today. We have a gift to all of you that are watching this. She wants everyone to close their eyes to hear with their heart greater. So I'll ask you to close your eyes. Tonight, before going to sleep, she wants you to each light a candle, to be still for a few moments, take those cleansing breaths, and ask Mary Magdalene to come into your heart. She will be your guide from now on. With a sincere heart, ask her to be your guide and give thanks, because the spirit world is offering every one of you a gift. And in the morning, blow out that candle after you come out of prayer, but give thanks for this gift and go to sleep knowing that you're going to get this gift in the morning and already being grateful. And here's what I want you to say. Oh, Mary Magdalene, I am so eternally grateful for the gift from you, from Spirit. Thank you in advance for the bounties in my life and the abundance. And I know and feel, and in my heart, understand you will make it so. Amen. I just felt a tremendous channel of energy go through my body. In the morning, when you awake, you will act as if you've already received this gift because you have. Within 3 months, you will have received the gift from Spirit. You will understand that this is your gift because this will be a felt experience. The more honorable and attuned that you are to the deep gifts that are yours in this life, the greater the gift. Act and be thankful in advance for the gift. Begin to act as if this gift is already on its way. So the key word here is trust. Trust that it's coming. Within 3 months, you will receive this gift. It'll be a felt experience. You will know automatically that this is your gift. Amen.
Sally, I know that you've told me that Mary Magdalene has been your greatest teacher of compassion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And she allows me to learn how to practice equanimity, that no matter how rough your heart, that you too can learn to be soft and strong. Thank you,
Awesome.
all of you, for joining us. Oh my God, thank you for guiding me in this, Suze.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome.
I so appreciate you and this audience, and I can't wait for you to join me on the pilgrimage. More to come on that.
Yeah, if you would like to sign up for Sally's newsletter, you can go to her website, myinnerlighthouse.com. And please leave a comment below and share this video.
Yes, and invite a friend. How beautiful to have a friend go on the pilgrimage with you. Thank you for joining me today. God bless.